The forbidden planet. The vast blackness of space stretched endlessly before the Zurich Empire's invasion fleet. Their warships, built for conquest, glided through the void in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the distant starlight. Admiral Varlek, a veteran of countless planetary conquests, stood tall on the command bridge of his flagship, the Dominance. His golden armor reflected the soft glow of control panels around him. The air carried the scent of burning plasma, a reminder of the hundreds of worlds he had crushed under Zurich rule. Yet this time, his mission was different. His target was Earth, a planet so insignificant, so weak, that the Galactic Council had never even bothered to list it as a potential threat. And yet, something strange had happened. The message. Varlek's reptilian eyes narrowed as he reread the message that had come from Earth just days before. A single, simple transmission. Stay away from Earth. This is your only warning. Nothing more. No threat. No request for peace. Just a warning. Varlek let out a harsh, guttural laugh. Who did these humans think they were? The Zirac had crushed civilizations 10 times stronger than Earth. Empires had begged for mercy before them. And yet, the humans thought a mere message would stop him. Commander Reichel, his second-in-command, stepped forward. His scales gleamed under the dim bridge lights. Admiral, we have entered Earth's outer system. Long-range scans show no significant fleet. Their defenses appear non-existent. Varlek grinned. As expected, they are afraid. They send empty warnings, hoping we will turn back. He turned to the fleet commander. Deploy the forward warships. Begin planetary approach. The Zurich fleet surged forward, breaking past the asteroid belt, moving toward their next conquest. They had no idea they were stepping into a trap. The first signs. As the Zurich fleet moved closer, an uneasy silence settled over the bridge. Commander Reichel frowned. Admiral, something is strange. Our communications are experiencing interference. Varlek raised an eyebrow. Interference? From what? Reichel's claws danced over the console. Unknown. It started as soon as we crossed into Earth's solar system. Our long-range probes have stopped transmitting. Varlek snorted. Mild solar radiation, nothing more. Earth is primitive. They are not capable of blocking our signals. Still, something felt wrong. Minutes later, the first ship disappeared. The vanishing. A Zurich officer's voice crackled over the fleet-wide comms. Admiral, we've lost contact with the scout cruiser of Rax 11. It vanished from all scanners. Varlek stiffened. What do you mean vanished? One moment, it was on our sensors. The next, it was gone. No explosion. No debris. No trace. Asterisk asterisk. Silence spread across the bridge. Varlek's sharp claws tapped against the console. Ships did not just vanish. Not unless they were erased. The Empire's confidence begins to shake. Commander Reichel shifted uneasily. Admiral, we should proceed with caution. Varlek growled. I do not fear shadows. Send another cruiser to investigate. A second scout ship was sent, and it disappeared within minutes. No explosion. No distress signal. Nothing. The bridge fell silent. For the first time, doubt crept into Varlek's mind. What was happening? The cold realization. A junior officer suddenly gasped, staring at the control screen. Sir, look at our long-range scanners. Varlek turned. His breath caught in his throat. Every single probe, every single drone, every single ship they had sent ahead was gone. Not destroyed. Just gone. The Zurich Empire had fought thousands of battles, conquered entire star systems, and faced horrific enemies. But they had never encountered anything like this. Varlek clenched his fists. Send a message to the fleet. All ships, prepare for engagement. We will not be intimidated by tricks. The final warning. As soon as he spoke, something changed. A deep hum echoed through the ship. The lights flickered. The screens distorted into static. And then, a message appeared on every screen across the Zirek fleet. A human voice, calm and emotionless, spoke. "You have ignored our warning. Turn back now. This is your last chance." Varlek's breath slowed. The humans knew they were here, and they were not afraid. He looked at the blank screens where his ships had vanished, and for the first time in his life, Admiral Varlek felt something he had never known before. Fear. The approach to Earth. Admiral Varlek had never hesitated before. His fleet had crushed civilizations, burned homeworlds, and enslaved entire species. But now, standing on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the black void where his scout ships had disappeared, he felt something new. Uncertainty. The humans had given them a warning. And now, it seemed that warning was real. The silence in space. The Zirek fleet continued forward, but something was different. There were no defensive outposts, no human warships, no planetary shields. And yet, the silence was unnatural. Commander Reichel, standing at the Admiral's side, shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, this doesn't feel right." Varlek clenched his jaw. "Of course it doesn't. A prey species should not be acting like a predator." The sudden interference. Across the fleet, the first major problem appeared. Long-range scanners failed. Communication signals began distorting. Navigation systems started experiencing random malfunctions. One by one, officers reported anomalies. "Admiral, our long-range sensors have been disabled." "Sir, our planetary scans aren't returning any data. We are losing control off." Static. The entire bridge went dark for a brief second. And then, the ship's system rebooted. Varlek turned to his officers, his voice sharp. "What just happened?" A technician hesitated. "Unknown, Admiral." It was as if something was inside our systems. Varlek's mandibles tightened. No empire, no force, not even the most advanced species the Zirek had faced, had ever managed to disrupt their systems. And yet, Earth had done it without firing a single shot. The Phantom Fleet. Suddenly, a new reading appeared on the scanners. Thousands of faint energy signatures, positioned all around the fleet. They appeared for a second, then vanished, as if they were never there. The bridge fell into a dead silence. Commander Reichel whispered, "We are being watched." The fleet's growing fear, panic began spreading among the fleet. Some warships reported strange energy fluctuations. Others swore they had seen movement on their radars, only for nothing to be there. Officers whispered rumors of ghosts, phantoms, and invisible predators. A Zirek gunner, barely able to control his trembling voice, asked, "What if the humans are hiding something? What if we walked into a sudden boom?" A Zirek destroyer exploded into flames. No warning, no enemy detected, just destruction. Varlek whipped around. Where did that attack come from? The officers checked their scanners. Nothing. There was no visible attacker. The fear spreads. Another ship exploded. Then another. Then another. Varlek's breath slowed. They were under attack, but there was no enemy to fight. The last warning. Then, across every screen, across every ship, across every communication channel in the fleet, a message appeared. The same calm, human voice from before. "This is your final warning. Turn back now." The bridge of the Zirek flagship fell into a stunned silence. Commander Reichel's voice was hoarse. "Admiral, I think we should listen." Varlek gritted his teeth. His fleet was the strongest in the galaxy. He would not be defeated by fear. He would not retreat. He raised his clawed hand. "Send the fleet forward. We attack Earth now." The order was given. The fleet moved in, and Earth was waiting. The unseen enemy. The Zirek fleet advanced toward Earth, their warships gleaming under the distant sun. From the outside, They looked unstoppable. But inside the command decks, inside the war rooms, inside the minds of every officer and soldier aboard those ships, there was only fear. The first shot, from nowhere. Admiral Varlek stood rigid, his claws gripping the control panel. His fleet should have fired the first shot. Instead, they were being destroyed. A cruiser detonated into fire and shrapnel, without a single missile detected. A warship's shields collapsed instantly, as if they had never been there. Entire squadrons of Zirek fighters disappeared from the fleet's formation, just gone. The screams of dying soldiers filled the comm channels. "We don't see them. We don't see them." Varlek turned sharply. "Where is the enemy? Find them." His technicians frantically worked the scanners, but there was nothing. No ships, no energy signatures, no movement. It was as if the Zirak were fighting ghosts. The illusion of power. The Zirek Empire had ruled the stars for centuries. Their war tactics were unmatched. Their technology was the best in the galaxy. Their military strength had never been questioned. But right now, none of it mattered. The weapons they had used to wipe out entire civilizations, the shields that had made them invincible, the strategies that had won every war before this one, all useless. They had walked into a battle they did not understand, and humanity was teaching them a lesson. The Admiral's growing horror. Commander Reichel gripped the edge of the console, his voice barely a whisper. "Admiral, we have made a mistake." Varlek turned to him sharply. The Zirak do not make mistakes. But even as he spoke, another warship exploded. Another squadron vanished. The fleet was being hunted. And still, there was no enemy. Varlek felt something he had never felt before. Helplessness. The terrifying truth. A technician gasped. "Admiral, incoming transmission." The main screen flickered, and the message appeared. A simple text. "We see you. You cannot see us. This is your last chance to leave." The bridge fell into dead silence. Varlek's claws twitched. His breathing slowed. For the first time in his life, he wondered, what if the humans were not bluffing? What if Earth was not weak? What if the Zirak were the prey? Earth's hidden power. Admiral Varlek stood frozen. His golden eyes stared at the message glowing on the main screen. "We see you. You cannot see us. This is your last chance to leave." The words were calm, cold, absolute. The illusion of strength. The Zirek Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had crushed armies, enslaved civilizations, and rewritten the balance of power in the galaxy. But today, standing in the shadow of a single planet, they were learning that terrible truth. They were not the hunters. They were the hunted. The silent battlefield. Varlek clenched his jaw. This was impossible. A fleet this size had never been defeated. No species had ever matched Zirak technology. No enemy had ever forced them to retreat. And yet, they were losing. The first realization. Commander Reichel whispered, "Admiral, we are fighting an enemy we do not understand." Varlek's claws curled into fists. Enough. His voice was sharp, cutting through the rising panic. Earth has played its games long enough. Fire the primary bombardment cannons. Destroy their planet. The bridge crew obeyed, activating the most powerful weapons in the fleet. Massive energy cannons, designed to shatter moons, locked onto Earth's surface. The fleet prepared to fire. And then, nothing happened. The unthinkable happens. Alarms blared. Warnings flashed across the screens. Weapons offline. Targeting systems failing. "We've lost control." Varlek's eyes widened. "What?" He turned to his weapons officer, whose face was pale with disbelief. "Admiral, our fleet has been hacked. The invisible war." Somewhere, deep beneath Earth's surface, in a hidden command center, human engineers watched the Zirek struggle. They had studied their enemy for decades. They knew every weakness in Zirac technology, and now they had shut them down completely. Admiral Alina Carter, leader of Earth's Defense Force, gave the order. Begin Phase 2, and with that, Earth struck back. The fleet falls apart. Zirac shields collapsed, leaving their warships defenseless. Engines malfunctioned, causing ships to drift helplessly. Weapon systems failed, turning the galaxy's most feared fleet into nothing but floating metal. The Zirac had been disarmed without a single shot being fired. And then, the real attack began. Earth unleashes its power. From the black void of space, the human fleet revealed itself. For the first time, the Zirac saw what had been hunting them. Sleek, black warships emerged from behind the moon, their hulls invisible to Zirac sensors. Hypersonic drones, silent as shadows, struck first, tearing into enemy vessels before they could react. Missiles launched from hidden locations on Earth, striking Zirac flagships with terrifying precision. Within seconds, the Zirac's unstoppable fleet became a graveyard, the Admiral's nightmare. Varlek couldn't breathe. His entire fleet, paralyzed. His greatest warships, falling apart. His warriors, dying, one by one. He had planned to conquer Earth. Instead, Earth was crushing him. A voice echoed through the fleet's remaining comm systems. A human voice. Calm, cold, merciless. You were warned. Varlek's vision blurred. They had underestimated humanity. And now it was too late. The Empire breaks. Admiral Varlek stood motionless. His war fleet, the pride of the Zirac Empire, the greatest armada in the galaxy, was crumbling before his eyes. His ships, once invincible, were now nothing but burning wreckage floating in orbit. His warriors, once fearless, were begging for orders. And the worst part, they had never even seen their enemy. The fleet's desperate struggle. Across the bridge, officers shouted in panic, "Our weapons are offline. Shields have collapsed. We're losing ships. There's no pattern to the attacks." The Zirac had spent centuries perfecting war, but nothing in their training had prepared them for this. They weren't fighting a war. They were being hunted. The unseen hunter. Varlek's claws dug into the metal railing as he watched his fleet fall apart. Some ships tried to retreat, only to be picked off one by one. Some fired blindly into the void, hoping to hit something, but there was nothing to hit. A battleship exploded in the distance, then another. No lasers, no enemy missiles, just silent destruction. The message from Earth. Then, across every remaining Zirac warship, a final transmission appeared. A simple text. Run. Varlek stared at the screen, his breathing ragged. This wasn't an enemy sending a warning. This was a predator playing with its prey. Commander Reichel whispered, his voice hollow. "Admiral, we need to leave." Varlek's pride versus reality. Varlek refused to believe it. The Zirac did not retreat. They were warriors, conquerors, rulers of the galaxy. And yet, his fleet was gone. His weapons were useless. And Earth had made them look like fools. He clenched his fists. Boom. The last Zirac dreadnought exploded in flames. Varlek closed his eyes. This war was lost. The order he never thought he'd give. A long silence filled the bridge. Then, all ships, retreat. The words tasted like poison. But there was no other choice. The Zirac Empire, the most feared force in the galaxy, was running for its life. As the surviving ships jumped into hyperspace, Varlek took one last look at Earth. A world that should have been weak. A world that had just destroyed him. And then, in a whisper only he could hear, he muttered, "We never should have come." The last warning. The Zirac fleet, or what remained of it, limped through hyperspace. The once mighty armada, feared across the stars, was now a broken shadow of its former self. And behind them, left untouched, was Earth. A planet that had never fired the first shot. A planet that had never sent warships. A planet that had just crushed the most powerful empire in the galaxy without being seen. The silence in the War Council. On the Zirek homeworld, deep within the Imperial war chambers, the High Command gathered. The Emperor himself, a being whose presence alone made warriors tremble, sat in his throne, his golden eyes fixed on the holographic display. In front of him, Admiral Varlek stood motionless. His armor was scorched. His pride was shattered. For the first time in his career, he had nothing to say. The room was silent. Then, the Emperor spoke. "Tell me, Admiral, why are you here and not ruling Earth?" Varlek's claws trembled. His jaw tightened. Then, slowly, he raised his head, and in a voice barely above a whisper, he answered, "Because Earth let me leave." The truth no one wanted to hear. Gasps filled the chamber. Some officers scoffed. Others whispered among themselves. The Zirek did not flee. The Zirek did not retreat. Yet here was their greatest admiral, a warlord of their empire, admitting he had been spared. The Emperor's voice remained calm. "Explain." Varlek swallowed. He told them everything. The scout ships that vanished without a trace. The weapons that failed before they could fire. The phantom attacks that tore their fleet apart. The message that haunted him even now. "We see you. You cannot see us. Leave." When he finished, the room fell into stunned silence. No one spoke. No one laughed. For the first time in the history of the Zirek Empire, they had no answer. The data that changed the galaxy. One of the Emperor's advisors stepped forward. "Surely there is evidence of these attacks. Battle logs, sensor readings." Varlek stared at him. "There is nothing." The advisor frowned. "Nothing." Varlek shook his head. No sensor data. No enemy ships on record. No weapon signatures. No fleet formations. Nothing. It was as if the battle had never happened. And that was the most terrifying part. The Emperor's verdict. The Emperor leaned back in his throne. His eyes gleamed with something no one had ever seen before. Not anger. Not disappointment. Fear. Then, with a slow, deliberate voice, he gave an order no Zirek had ever spoken before. "From this day forward, Earth is off limits." The room froze. Some commanders tried to protest. Others argued for revenge. The Emperor raised a single clawed hand, and the room fell silent. His next words shook the Zirek Empire to its core. "We do not wage war against an enemy we cannot see. The galaxy takes notice." The decision sent shockwaves through the universe. The most feared empire in the galaxy had marked a single planet as untouchable. Other warlords took notice. Other empires whispered in council halls. And somewhere, in the cold darkness of space, an unknown force watched in silence. A final message. As the last Zirek warships left the Sol system, a single final transmission was sent from Earth. It was not a threat. It was not a declaration of war. It was not a request for peace. It was a warning. Stay away. And for the first time in history, the galaxy listened. The legend of Earth, the Zirek Empire, a civilization that had ruled the stars for centuries, had just done something unthinkable. They had fled. They had retreated from a single planet. They had marked Earth as forbidden. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The silence in the council halls. News of the Zirek's defeat spread like wildfire. The Sirathian High Lords, who had once mocked Earth, now held emergency meetings. The Ruthal warlords, known for their bloodthirsty conquests, quietly removed Earth from their invasion lists. The Galactic Council, an assembly of the universe's greatest powers, sat in stunned silence as the Zirek Emperor's message was played before them. Earth is off limits. 3 words. 3 words that shook the foundation of the known universe. The fear of the unknown. For centuries, Earth had been dismissed as irrelevant, a backwater planet, a primitive species. Now, The greatest empire in the galaxy had walked away from them without a fight. And the question every ruler, every warlord, every leader now asked was the same. Why? The Zirek's shame. On the Zirek homeworld, the surviving fleet returned, but there was no welcome. No grand ceremony. No words of encouragement. Only silence. To flee from battle was the ultimate disgrace. For the first time in their history, the Zirek warriors lowered their banners, and in the halls of the High Command, their emperor spoke the words that would be etched into history. We looked into the abyss, and it looked back. Earth's final move. For days, the galaxy waited for Earth to speak. Would they demand surrender? Would they claim dominance over the stars? Would they strike first before another empire could? But Earth sent no war fleets, no envoys, no threats. Instead, they sent a single transmission. A message broadcast to every known empire, every warlord, every hidden enemy. A message that would haunt the galaxy for generations. The last transmission. The screens across the universe flickered. And then, in that same calm, emotionless voice, Earth spoke one final time. We are humanity, and we are watching. No demands, no explanations, no mercy. Just a simple fact. Earth had seen the galaxy. And now, the galaxy knew Earth was watching back. The galaxy's response. The universe stood still. Empires that had planned invasions erased their battle strategies. Warlords who had laughed at Earth now whispered in fear. And deep in the unknown reaches of space, something else watched. Something older. Something stronger. Something that had never feared anything before. But now, even they hesitated. The legend begins. The galaxy would never see Earth the same way again. Once, humanity was seen as weak. Now, they were something else entirely. Something unkillable. Something unpredictable. Something the universe was not ready for. And across the endless stars, one message remained. A simple warning. A truth that would outlast time itself. Stay away from Earth. End of story.